Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for making the time over today, over the next couple of days. I'm not making the time just anywhere, but in one of the absolute homes of global aviation, the Royal Aeronautical Society, as Howard was just mentioning in his introductory remarks, over 150 or so years of being responsible pioneers in aviation. And as we look to the future, and it's one of the mantras that we have in the UK Space Agency, we look at how we can be responsible pioneers in the space as well. Space is one of those things, as the Minister said, that it convenes excitement as well as innovation and technology and science. And I don't want to quash any of that excitement whatsoever. But I think it is very important that when we're talking about space as professionals together, when we're talking with colleagues who may or may not be in industries that are either using space or in space itself, we start from the perspective of what the benefits are of space to life on Earth. We've all gazed up at the stars. Humanity has since the dawn of our civilization, and frankly before. But we are very focused in the Space Agency on bringing those benefits back down. So we talk about the purpose of the UK Space Agency. So we're there to drive and build UK prosperity. It matters, the jobs, the industry, the academic development. We're there to understand the universe, solar system, the orbits, out into the galaxy and beyond, understanding, fundamentally discovering, exploring. And at least as importantly, we're there to protect the planet, to protect outer space, to ensure that what we do is sustainable for generations to come and supports our collective ways of life here on Earth. I think that's one of the main reasons why we're all gathered here over the next 3 days. We see a collective opportunity to do something truly transformational. But it's a bit of a challenge. Right? When we're in the fiscal environment we're in, I suspect each of you, whether you're in government, whether you're in industry, whether you're in a global or international agency, whether you're in academia, wherever you are, you're probably feeling the pinch on budgets in some way, shape or form. And I think that gives us a challenge. There are two ways fundamentally of looking at something like space-based power versus solar. One can say it is complex, it is difficult, some of the technology is in its infancy, there are technological barriers to overcome, there are challenges whichever way you look, and it is going to be costly. Thank you to Fraser Nash for highlighting that it is doable but costly, and therefore we shouldn't do it. Or we can say it is complex, it is difficult, the technology is in its infancy, there are technological barriers that we have to overcome. And that's exactly why we should be looking at it. Going back to being the Aeronautical Society, if we were 160 years ago, people would have been looking and saying all the same sorts of things about powered flight or whichever technological development, scientific breakthrough, could have been having the same conversations. So the perspective of the UK Space Agency, the perspective of government, and you hear from colleagues over the course of the next 3 days, is to be professionally positive, not to sit on the sidelines, nor to assume that we can go it alone, to carefully assess where we are, to commission the independent studies that we have done in 2021, to reflect on the different priorities, to reflect on the budgets that are available and how we spend each pound well so that we catalyse investment into the UK, best bring those benefits back down to Earth. But be professionally positive, not professionally neutral. And that's why if you look into the Space Industrial Plan that the government published last month, you will see that across the defence and the civil side of space, government coming together, trying to speak with one voice, not just about the overall national space strategy, but about what that means across, in this case, industry. We isolated 5 capabilities that we particularly wanted to prioritise alongside the other work that we were doing. So things like in-orbit service, assembly and manufacture, space domain awareness. We picked out capabilities which were foundational to allowing the even more sophisticated capabilities, including space-based solar, to take place. We're not going to have much space-based solar unless we can do large-scale manufacturing and assembly in space. But I wouldn't want anyone to think that those 5 capabilities are somehow exclusive. They are not. Obviously, on the one hand, we will continue with Earth observation, with exploration, with space science, with launch. Look out later in Scotland for vertical launches in the UK. But also, you will see in the document written quite clearly about the value of space energy and the importance of us investing exactly there. So across government, and you've heard Minister Soloway talk about the DESNES perspective and federal government perspective, and internationally, you just heard from Josef Aschbacher, and you'll be hearing later from, I think, Teodoro Valenti from the Italian Space Agency, ESA. You'll be hearing from Koji Tanaka from the Japanese Space Agency. You'll be hearing from Charity, from NASA, many more. You'll be hearing, of course, from Sanjay and colleagues who run the Solaris program in the European Space Agency, how we are collectively working on this challenge, this problem, this opportunity that is space-based solar power. That's the way we're going to do it. International collaboration runs like a stick of rock through most space endeavours and pretty much everything that the Space Agency does. That's nice, isn't it? That's all very nice words. But actually, to get these things done, you have to put a bit of money behind it. So we've been looking at that for the last 2 years or more. How do we go beyond the general purpose technologies, which can support all manner of space-based activity, including space-based solar, into specific programs that support this particular technology and opportunity? So to give you an example of that, in the Council of Ministers of the European Space Agency back in 2022 in November, some of you there, Dave, I think you might remember a bit of this. We had all sorts of conversations. We had the conversation about exploration. We had the conversation about cislunar communication and navigation. Every country was looking at where it would invest its money. That got quite feisty in places. Got there. UK invested a record 1.8 billion euros. Never before we invested so much. It went for mission leadership and a number of areas. But I'm not sort of recalling that trauma for 18 months ago just for the general sense of it, because there was a programme which didn't need a great deal of negotiation, where the UK was absolutely able to sign up without further discussion. That was the Solaris programme under the GSTP banner. And some of you will know from the European Space Agency, we committed 5 million euros in that programme for the next, for the coming 5 years. That was our way of saying we want to lead with other countries on the international stage on space-based solar. We're not thinking that that amount of money is going to build the power stations in space, but we did want to start de-risking the technology. And we also wanted to use the different levers that were at our disposal. So we have something like 70% of UK space funding through the Space Agency flowing through the European Space Agency, and then making good use of the infrastructure and the incredible expertise that is in that agency to benefit our industries and academia at home. But we didn't want to stop there. We also wanted to look at what funding we could do through domestic routes, through national programmes. So you will have heard the money that the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero have put in, over £3 million, in addition to over £2 million from the UK Space Agency, specific to space-based solar power. In fact, going a little bit beyond that, our flagship domestic programme, the National Space Innovation Programme, we've looked at in-orbit service, assembly and manufacture, and space-based solar is clearly a part of that, and deliberately dedicated almost a third of our funding over the coming years in that programme to IRSAM. So that gives people an opportunity that are in the industries like space-based solar to really get ahead of the curve in getting to that funding. And as Minister Soloway highlighted just last month, we announced an additional £1.2 million for Space Solar Limited. Seeing Sam is in the room, Sam and Martin who lead it, Stuart who chairs it. And that work is already well underway. De-risking the technologies, understanding the basics, building the prototypes, getting stage by stage closer, going up the technology readiness levels. Not because we think that's the only way to do it, but we think there is great IP in the UK that we can bring to bear collaboratively with the rest of the world as we collectively learn, as we collectively go further towards that goal of sustainable power from the sun. So as you go through today and you hear from different experts and contribute and have those conversations that make the magic happen in a conference, read those papers. I hope that you take something away from the conference, from the discussions, some sense that we're in this together, that we're collaborating, that there is an amazing purpose to bring those benefits, in this case of power, down from space, and that we do so in that spirit of responsible pioneering that this building and this society has been part of for over a century, and we can continue in that vein. Thank you very much for your time.